This is Marco Brindis, and you're watching the Best Practices Show.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the Best Practice Show. We take a look at the best business practices from the best dental practices all over the world. And I have a huge treat for you. I've been trying forever to get this guy on the show, and you're going to love us, Dr. Marco Brindis. And he is just awesome, just awesome. And a couple show notes. We are shooting this live on Facebook. So as you're watching today, if you do us a favor, you have a couple questions and you're just thinking about them, add them to the feed, and I'll ask the master himself while we have him on here live. And even if you're watching them later on, if you still have questions, continue to add them to the feed because we want you to get the most out of this every single time you're on. And again, thank you so much for all your questions, your follows, your suggestions for shows. We're lining them up as best we can. We're now up over 38,000 followers on Facebook. Over 150,000 of you have visited us on iTunes. Thank you again. I don't even know how that's working, but I just really, really appreciate it. Now, my guest today is just one of the newest, most, I don't know if you're one of the newest, but like you've been around for a while, but one of the speakers that's just starting to show up everywhere. And you and I had a chance to meet at the Seattle Study Club Symposium. I've heard about you forever. I'm like, Marco, I got to get you on the show. And it took us a while to get you. But Dr. Marco Brindis, now, if people don't know you, can you share with them a little bit about who you are and what you do before we jump into the topic today?
Of course. Thank you so much, Kirk, for having me here. It's amazing. It's an honor to be here and to share ideas with your audience. I know how wonderful is your audience and how they're so thirsty for some knowledge and guidance and everything. And I really appreciate these type of situations. I've been a dentist my whole life. I started to be a dentist when I was 6 years old because my dad was a dentist. And he was an odontologist, and I imagine I was, instead of playing soccer, I was doing a wax up, P.K. Thomas technique in his office when I was 6 years old, and he would stay with me and cast it at the end of the day. And he was an amazing teacher and a great human being that got me introduced to many other dentists. So my whole life I've been very passionate about dentistry and trying to find solutions for other human beings to be healthier, to be more self-confident, and to have a better life. So that's pretty much my background. I'm in academia. I always wanted to be in academia, and I'm in Louisiana State University, Department of Prosthodontics, and it's an honor to be here. It's an honor they give me the opportunity to follow my dream to be an academician.
Yeah, and you're not only an academician, but you're an incredible teacher, influencer in dentistry. And today we're going to be talking about a hopeless tooth is not a useless tooth, which I absolutely love. But I want to talk about the why and kind of your journey, because I joked before we went live, you knew the superheroes before you became a superhero yourself. So I want you to talk about your journey a little bit. Now, we always talk about Bill Robbins, Bob Margis, Jerry Sheesh, some of the icons. You called them the Jedis of dentistry, which I totally agree. Now, you knew Bill Robbins before you even decided to become a dentist. Can you just tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to this point?
Yes, absolutely. Growing up with my dad and my dad lecturing every weekend. By the way, he was always lecturing for free because he believed in passing the torch to somebody else, and because of that he got to lecture with some speakers like Bill Robbins. So Bill Robbins used to be in Mexico lecturing all over, and many times lecture with my dad. And so I met him when I was a teenager, and you can see him once and you know that he's one of the best teachers by just seeing him once. And he was more than just a dental mentor. He's just like my dad. He was a mentor in life, a mentor in how to be an honest man and how to respect other people, how to respect the work of other people, and how to do your best and put your heart and soul into something. So that was Bill Robbins, and eventually because of that, that evolved to have the opportunity to come to the United States, to New Orleans, to do my pros residency because I was following the steps of Jerry Shish, another amazing Jedi master out there. I mean, look at him for how long he has been a teacher and how respected he is because of how honest he is with his work and how ethical. And that's the kind of people that has been surrounding me, as well as Bob Marges has been such a great mentor and a friend, a true friend. I mean, everybody that knows Bob, he's the kind of person that makes you, that helps you judge other people. Because if somebody doesn't like Bob, there's something wrong with that person.
Right. Right.
So that's I'm very fortunate, and the other person that really make a big difference in my life was Vincent Kokich, and one of the best teachers ever seen, and he gave me so much knowledge on actually the topic that we're going to talk today, and the way his approach, very interdisciplinary, very open. Him and the team Atlanta with Henry Salama and Garber, as well, mentors of mine, really good friends. So as you can see, I'm very surrounded by great people, and that's the best you can do in this profession is surround yourself with honest, great, honest teachers, not presenters but teachers, and that's what I've been so lucky. That's what I have had in my life.
Yeah, well, that's awesome, buddy. And that's really the true blessing in the journey. Now, one of your passions is to keep these teachings alive, keep the things that you've learned alive and through these great mentors. And I want to talk about why this topic is so important to you, because as we were discussing before you went live, this is the core essence of your passion behind what you want to teach. But why is this subject so important more now than ever? On not just categorizing something as a useless tooth.
Okay. Yes. Well, the question is, what do you do with a hopeless tooth? And with the introduction of implant dentistry in our profession, we had a tendency, and I have to tell you, I started at the beginning of my career in implant dentistry. Kind of in an arrogant side, on the arrogant side that I know now the answer that can take of all the problems, to the point that I said, never again we're going to do root canals. To that point. And I was completely wrong. Because an implant is a great plan B. It's an amazing plan B. But it's not at all, for me, a plan A. When you have a tooth that is hopeless, don't rush jump into extract it. There's so many things, and I started learning those lessons with Henry Salama, with Frank Spear. They were talking about that, and they have mentioned actually. I thought I came out with that title of a hopeless tooth is a useless tooth, and I've been lecturing a lot on big symposiums and the podium, on the main podium. And I was teaching that I came out with that idea, and suddenly I realized that Henry Salama published that in 1999 and mentioned that a hopeless tooth is not a useless tooth. But I have to give all the credit, but it's truly something I truly believe in. With a hopeless tooth, there's so many things that you can do. For example, if it's completely hopeless, you can still manipulate that hopeless tooth with orthodontics. Orthodontic extrusion, even a lateral movement of the tooth to create a bone, to be more predictable on the implant result and the aesthetic result of the implant. So there's so many things to do, and many times at the end, you can end up saving that tooth, and that tooth has PDL that is going to continue the bone remodeling. There's going to continue so many different functions like proprioception that is going to help the implant for the longevity of the implant. Mentioned when many of these cases we see a broken tooth in a patient that is 25-year-old. All right, and what are you going to do? That patient is going to live for another 50, 60, 70 years after that. And an implant, we don't know how well it's going to look in the next 20 years. So we want to buy some time, and sometimes with the new bonding systems that we have, and with the very strong ceramics that we have nowadays, we can combine these two forces and then give a second chance to that tooth that it might last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. It's okay. In 15 years, we're going to have better technology. It's buying us time. So we don't have a product like an implant that comes with many problems. I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not saying it's not a great option. It's an amazing option, but it's never my plan A. My plan A, I'm always on the side of the tooth.
Yeah, absolutely. And always taking the patient's, interest first. And Marcos, we see this all the time, is that 1 in 3 babies that's born today is actually going to live to be 100. So as a culture, we're going to be living longer. No matter how good you are as a dentist, we don't know how long some of this stuff is going to last. And so giving yourself some time, and with the advancements of technology, I always want to ask the question, you're out there speaking, you get a chance to speak to a lot of Seattle study clubs. Most people want to do the right thing. Why doesn't this happen at times? What do you think there's too much financial pressure on dentists at times? Do you think there's not enough education? From your perspective, why do you think people don't take this vantage point?
I think there's a tendency in the lecture circuit and in general with social media of showing amazing pictures of amazing cases, and of course they send you the picture of a beautiful photography with a beautiful outcome on the day they deliver or a couple of weeks after, and there's an abuse of gratification, on instant gratification, by posting these things and say like, oh, how wonderful you are. And they are. And it requires a lot of talent to get to that point. But let's not forget about what happened after, and those things are not happening that often. We don't like to talk about, none of us like to talk about our mistakes, our limitations. We all try to be accepted by other human beings, and we try to project the best, or what we think is best for everybody else. And that's a tendency. And that's why I always am anchored to my true mentors. Because, again, it's just the analogy that we said at the beginning, that it was very spontaneous when I told you about my Jedi masters that I followed. Because they have the integrity that they don't let themselves be seduced by the dark side of the fame, of the appearances, but they are consistent, and you can trust them because they've been there for a long time. That's the difference between something fake and something real. What is really lasts for a long time. Integrity lasts forever. Beautiful pictures and beautiful results, they might last for a little long, but then suddenly it's not going to be that important anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard Bill Robbins say this. He's been practicing for 40 years. He says, Kirk, you know what our number one responsibility is? I say, what? He says, we always want to leave the campfire in better condition than we found it. And I love that, because it speaks to a bigger responsibility in this whole thing. And Marco, I want you to talk about the superhero concept in this, because when you speak, if you haven't seen this guy speak, you got to see him speak, because you use the superhero concept when you teach. And I love this, because I grew up watching the superheroes. But how to use the superheroes, and let's talk about this topic. How do you put those together when you are instructing dentists?
Well, it's very simple. When we start getting into aesthetic dentistry, for example, before it was easy. It was a very easy selection. What was the gold standard of dentistry? Gold. And gold and still a great, amazing material. Now, is it pretty? No, it's not pretty. I mean, it's pretty to see the properties of the material. It's pretty how long they last, but appearance-wise, for the patient, is not appealing, right? That's why we needed to come up with better materials. And in the 80s, what was the material of selection for aesthetics? A PFM, right?
Right.
And you add the ceramic on that. And back in the days, it's just like in the 80s. What was the only superhero in the 80s? Superman. So the only movies out there in the 80s, it was Superman. Yeah. Right? So for any kid, it was very easy. What's your favorite superhero? Superman. And I was a Superman. But with all the with the evolution of the different ceramics, it's ridiculous how many ceramics we have nowadays. The same thing that the last Avengers movie, they could not load it with more superheroes, right? And exactly what happened when you have so many different ones. Now it's overwhelming to choose which one is the best one, right? And the key is on all these movies is like there's not a perfect superheroes because every single one has a flaw. And that's when it comes the other one to help you. So you have to keep all these different tools, the different options available for you, but you have to understand them. You have to really study them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I talked about this, kind of the old way was a full coverage restoration, old way is a core. And we're going to go into that on materials in another interview. But now dentists have to think more vertical than just, hey, look, there's one tool in doing this. And, the question often comes up. I get this question, Marco, too. Like a lot of people understand this, but their question is, can you make money trying to save these teeth that might be useless? And you see it all the time. People can do this. They can do it very well. Bob Margis is a great example. He talks about this like he shows teeth that you're like, no way. And he saves them. And you're like, that's crazy, So what do you see out there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I forgot to mention my brother is an orthodontist. Mm-hmm. And my brother was the first one who got exposed to interdisciplinary approach by the Team Atlanta with Garber and Salama brothers, and by Vincent Kokich and Frank Spears at the time. And he was the one who made a big impact in the way I see things. Because it was probably in 1999 it was probably the year 2001 that I had the fortune to lecture me, my brother, and my dad in the same podium. Wow. And the name of the symposium was all about Brindis. Mm. And it was a huge success because there was a true bonding in between us, believing in one thing. And the ultimate is to get the best benefit for the patient. Mm-hmm. Get the best, to treat your patient like he's your mother, your father, or the person that you love the most. So right. Then you put all your effort and imagination and creativity into come up with the best solution instead of having a linear approach where it's like, this is this, this is this. No, every patient is completely different. And when we think about the different specialties, if you don't know, for example, I tell my prosthodontist, what meetings do I have to attend? Go to an orthodontic meeting.
Yes.
To a perio meeting. Or go to a Seattle Study Club symposium where they combine the different specialties. Or like the Restorative Academy where they have different specialties. But don't go to one that tells you only about your specialty because you generate a tunnel vision that doesn't allow you to see more of what you have to see.
Yeah.
So when it comes to interdisciplinary dentistry, when you know how to combine them, you actually can be more efficient, more affordable for the patient, and better results with a longer success.
Yeah, absolutely. Great thought. Now, our friend Lori Owens asked a great question and said, Marco, what would you say? How would you say that different types of materials should be considered on a per patient and per situation basis? What would you say to that?
Absolutely. One of the things that I do with the Seattle Study Club clubs, what I do is treatment planning sessions. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I enjoy the most about those sessions is because you come up with 3 or 4 different treatment plans with 3 or 4 different ceramics. And I always, when I'm coordinating the different teams, what I'm telling them, I'm not asking you for the perfect treatment plan. I'm asking you for your rationale for that treatment plan. And that's the most important thing. Right. And at the end, when you have the right rationale, even when I present the case, after listening on after many times that I presented the case and with different opinions, I actually not so impressed with what my decision was. And I come like, well, I did this and I selected this material because of this and this and this. But now I think that it could have been better if I had to have used this one because of this and this and this. It's always what is your rationale? It's always the rationale. It's not the material. It's the rationale. And right. It's fine but of course, it's always understanding. And that's what I focus when I talk about ceramic materials. It's about the limitations. Yeah. Focus on the limitations, because if you focus on the indications, the different ceramics overlaps in indications. And it's confusing. Yeah. But you understand the limitations of the material and the limitations on the bonding capacity of the material, then you can come up with a much better, accurate solution for the patient. But it is true that there is not only one way to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I were together again at the Seattle Study Club Symposium. Dr. Bill Robbins talks about this all the time. And we heard this theme when we were all together, probably 3 to 4 times, maybe 6 times that week, was while there may be many treatment plans, there's only one true diagnosis. You know, so I see that all the time in the treatment planning sessions. Everyone is, debating, they're going back to their philosophy, but would you agree with that, Marco? Like it all starts with diagnosis first, like, because you can't debate a diagnosis, can you?
No. Well, there's areas that we can kind of guess what is the best what was the problem. For example, when you bring to the table sleep apnea and other different things, or bruxism, they can have different origins, and you have to be a detective. Dr. Sheesh used to tell me that.
Yes.
You have to be a detective. You have to observe. Don't make decisions. Spend more time observing, and try to link little things and come up with that. And the first thing I learned that from Dr. Sheesh, from Bill Robbins, from my dad. And I always start my treatment planning sessions with that. Do not give me a treatment plan until you give me a diagnosis first. That's the most important thing, because we have the tendency, all of us, and I have done it, to jump into the execution and to jump into treatment planning without having a diagnosis. And that is a recipe to lead you to a poor result and very short success.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you look at these multiple treatment options, take us through the mind of a restorative dentist, because being at the Seattle Study Club Symposium, which I always tell people to go to, it hurts my brain. You're around some pretty amazing people, and there are times you can feel a little insignificant. You're like, wow, that's pretty amazing what that person is suggesting. But really, as you evolve as a clinician, you want to start coming to a point where you are starting to practice with what we're really talking about, Marco, is practicing within your core values and your competency. You want to put the two together so that you feel like, hey, look, what I'm doing is the right thing. And examining options for how to save these teeth is, I think it's going to be one of the most important things in the future as far as restorative dentistry, and a tremendous opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. And, meetings, like I said again, like the Seattle Study Club Symposium, like the Restorative Academy, they're so ethical, and they're so focused on and get the truth. And there's, like you said, I always, when I'm sitting in those chairs, I always feel this little, because like, oh my God, I never thought about this, I never thought about that. But at the end, it's very humble. It helps me to continue being myself, because that's the best I can be, myself. Yeah. I don't want to be anybody else. As much as I love my dad, my mentors, I have to use all their knowledge and use them to become a better myself. So going back to what we were talking, yes, it's important to understand that the more we see implant dentistry, we jump too fast into implant dentistry, and the more we see it, these meetings, they show you all the mistakes and all the things that can go wrong, and all the things that, hey, listen, 20 years, that's a real success rate. Well, it's not when it was placed on a patient that he was 25 years old. That's not. I don't want to see my daughter, with an implant at 25 years old, and then having her dealing with problems at 40. And sometimes those when he fails, it's catastrophic the way they fail.
Right.
So I always, one of the other things that I always recommend when you're treatment planning something on my treatment planning sessions is try to make your decision based on whatever you choose is going to fail. Which one is going to fail less, or is going to be less catastrophic, and which one is going to be simpler to correct when he fails? Because everything that we do has the potential to fail.
Absolutely. Everything in life is temporary. That is so good. I love that. Now, let's say I'm a 32-year-old dentist and I'm watching this interview. Give me some perspective. Like, Marco, what do you see as a good example of a hopeless tooth is not a useless tooth, just in regular practice for you or for anybody?
Yes. We understand, for example, and let's go to something very simple, like a single unit. Well, nothing is simple in the implant dentistry, but I'm saying the simpler of the difficult anesthetic zone. All right?
Right.
So a lateral incisor, right? A missing lateral incisor. Or no, not missing lateral incisor, but failing lateral incisor, all right? We know from many studies, from Coyce, from Tarnow, and they kind of like publish the possible bone loss and recession that you can have after implant placement. And it goes pretty much average up to 0.8, 1 millimeter that you could have, all right?
Mm-hmm.
It could be from nothing to all the way to 1.5. But I want to be ready for the worst, all right? So let's start with this example, very simple. If the gingival margin is in the right spot, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what are you going to do if for any reason you place your implant and you're going to have a little recession in a patient that shows it has a high smile? That's not going to be a success, right? So to be a little bit more predictable, instead of just go ahead and extract that tooth, use the power of the PDL. And then you can pull that tooth down slowly and bring all the soft tissue, or you can bring the keratinized tissue, increase the width of the keratinized tissue, as well as to bring the bone with it. Now that you overcorrect, you place your implant, and then it's always easier to remove some tissue. But to create tissue, that's a problem. So
yes.
that one simple. But perhaps you say, no, I'm very consistent on my results on a lateral incisor. But what happens when you have two teeth right next to each other?
Mm-hmm.
That becomes a true challenge, you know? And that's when it's so important to do everything that you have learned to improve the situation. And one of the things that I learned, because I have a big influence from the orthodontic world, I think is a great tool to have force eruption and to improve the periodontum, to improve the bone quality, to improve the bone height, to improve the soft tissue. And perhaps sometimes you don't improve it 100%, but you will improve it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can combine it with other techniques, soft tissue grafting, bone grafting at the same time. But do everything that you have in your tools to make it better.
Yeah.
So those are two simple things. Like I said before, when you're doing these cases, you know that it's always better to have a soft tissue graft. I mean, Iñaki Gamborena has shown that, you know, and many others. And even when you have that soft tissue graft, if you force erupt that one, you will increase the width, the bandwidth of that keratinized tissue,
mm-hmm.
which is a great protection for the aesthetics, for the long-term aesthetics of your implant in the aesthetic zone.
Yeah. Well, it requires you to be patient, number one, you know, when you're doing all this, and then also to have a great team around you. What would you say to the dentist who says, Dr. Brindis, I totally understand, but I don't have the team that you have. Like, how do you find a team of interdisciplinary, committed people like this?
One of the things that I actually lecture is the hows and how to do it. One is to have a team when you have an orthodontist. It always, as a restorative dentist, you always need to have a periodontist. You always need to have a neurosurgeon. And you always you need to have an orthodontist. Mm-hmm. Because orthodontics can reduce dramatically the amount of treatment that we do on our patients. Okay, right. Many cases that if you don't have the orthodontist, it's going to be a full malrehabilitation because we have to open the video, for example. Right, can be corrected by orthodontics, open the video, and then just have minimal restorations in other teeth. You know, mm-hmm. So I'm always trying to look for the best for our patients, and the patients are not wealthy. The patients mm-hmm. are making a big sacrifice. So you want to decrease the amount of treatment, unnecessary treatment, just because you're not using your other specialist.
Yeah, absolutely. And having a great team around you. Again, there are so many people that want to try to do all of this themselves. And I'm just a fan of figuring out what you're good at and then surround yourself with people that are better at the things that you aren't.
When it comes to the simple cases that I just talked to you about, because I do very, very complex cases in other situations. But going back to the simple, everyday general practice practitioner, all right, that they're going to have to deal with an implant in the aesthetic zone. I do and I teach how to do the force eruption in these simple cases. Okay, and I do it myself, mm-hmm. and it doesn't take me too long. It's about a ratio of about 1 millimeter a month to build soft tissue and bone. So, I mean, in a matter of 6 months, you can have easily 4 months, 4 millimeters of correction of the tissue before the implant placement. Mm-hmm. And that, I mean, just compare it side by side with surgery. I'm not saying not to have surgery. I'm saying sometimes doing this technique, you won't have the surgery. And we don't have the surgery on bone grafting, then you're saving actually time instead of spending more time.
Right.
And money as well. And predictability, because you can start with the ortho movement and immediately in the first month, you know if this is going to work or not. And if if you see this is not going to work, you can abort on the first month and you didn't lose anything.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I have so many questions, and one of them is, we're going to have you back. We're going to be talking about different things. We're going to be talking about the bonding techniques and things like that. I really want to get you back and talk about the edentulous patient because you're so good at that. But what would you say to a young dentist who's just getting started and just say, hey, look, here's my best pieces of advice for you. I know you're trying to figure things out, but to enjoy a long career in dentistry, I would say this. What would you say to them?
Well, never stop studying. Never. Every time that you think that you know it, I can guarantee you don't. And it happens to everybody. And the sooner you understand that, the faster you're going to start growing. Yeah. Because there's no room for growing when you think you're in the top. There's growing when you're in the bottom. And I feel that I'm always in the bottom. Like we said before, when we are on these symposiums, it's like, holy crap. Right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I'm sure I can say that word in life.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, anyway, but the one thing is surround yourself by the people that you like and by the people that you think are consistent, not the ones that are showing you good pictures, not the ones that are showing you amazing photography. Follow the ones that are talking about their mistakes. Following the ones that are really truly teaching, not the ones that are, because there's a lot out there that you can get very distracted.
Yeah.
So first, surround yourself with that. Second, you have to join a study club because that's so important, because you cannot be the best. It's so easy to lose ground if you don't have the support of great people around you. That's another thing. It's not only the teachers. I'm talking about your colleagues, where you can have discussion in a study club. And I'm perhaps I'm biased, but I love and I'm very blessed that I'm part of the Seattle Study Club family. I'm really blessed. I'm truly blessed, and they have been amazing to me and amazing to the profession.
Yep.
And so ethical. So it's just, but I'm not telling you go with that one. Go with whatever your heart tells you. I'm just telling you what worked for me. Okay. Yeah. And the other thing is surround yourself with that. And once you have that, you will get your mind is going to just completely open to another options. So just follow really good meetings. Like the Seattle Study Club Symposium is one of my favorite ones. Not only, it's just so comprehensive. Don't forget that not everything in life is dentistry.
Yeah.
It's about to be a good human being. It's about to be a good friend. It's about to be a good husband. It's about to be a good son. It's about to be a good father. It's about to be a good teacher. And it's about to be a good student. And you follow those rules and you're going to be fine. And these meetings really put everything together to make health, mental health, emotional health, entertainment. It's just so amazing. And then you have other ones that are more scientific. Like I'm very, very proud to be part of the Restorative Academy. It's by invitation. Find somebody that is a member, because it will change your life. That changed my life. Before that, because of that, I was able to be in contact with the Seattle Study Club, where I met Bob Marges, Paresh, my good friend Paresh. I mean, all my friends are there. Marcos Vargas.
Yep.
All these mentors. Bill Robbins.
Yeah.
I mean, I had Bill Robbins. My first meeting I attended, it was in 1998. And I never missed another one. And now I'm very proud to be a member. And those kind of organizations really get you, and they're very, very strict on being try to be as unbiased as possible.
Yeah. Absolutely. Amen, my friend. I couldn't encourage you enough, if you're watching this, to be involved with both of those if you can. They're incredible blessings to the profession. And now I always want to ask you this too, Marco, because you get to see so much stuff. What's on the horizon for dentists? What do you think we're going to see here in the next couple of years when you look at bonding and, restorative dentistry and even the edentulous patient? What are some things that you think we're going to see in the future?
I know I promised to myself not saying it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The things that I see, I strongly believe is like retentive dentistry will pretty much disappear.
Okay. Explain that.
That retentive dentistry comes together with more destruction of the tooth structure to create the retentive surface that we need. Bondings are getting better and better. Ceramics and bonding techniques are getting better. So definitely, if you are just coming out of dental school and you're gonna be mostly a restorative dentist, you have to invest a lot of time and commitment and financially to get trained on bondings. And there are different philosophies. You have the West Coast, you have the East Coast. They're amazing. They're all wonderful. I learn from all of them. I have great. I cannot call him my mentor because he doesn't know me. But Pascal Manier it's an amazing person to follow in
Yes.
his philosophy. Francesca Bagliati, that is so amazing, honest work. But then on the other side, you have Marcus Blatz from a different perspective. You have John Burgess. And those are two great mentors because I'm more on the East Coast and they have been really true mentors. So it's key to learn bonding techniques. It's very, very important. Bonding techniques to the tooth, bonding techniques to the material. It's key to understand cements. It's key to understand ceramic materials. How do they behave in different thicknesses? All are a little different. So that you have to invest more time and commitment on that more than anything else, because that is going to change dramatically how we do things. It's already changing dramatically.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have you back, and you're going to take us through how those changes are affecting everyday practice and how a lot of the great dentists that are watching this can stay in front of those. And there's so many topics I want to cover with you. And Marco, I can't thank you enough for being on today. Now, I'm just going to say this. If you're watching this and you're part of a study club, well, if you're not part of a study club, become part of a study club. And then if you do have a study club, this is definitely one of the guys that you want to have speaking to your study club, because he's out speaking every single week and just an incredible mentor, friend, and great influencer. Now, if people want to reach out to you and get a hold of you, Marco, how can they reach you? Now, keep in mind, some people are listening to this on iTunes. So if you wouldn't mind, could you share your email address too?
Absolutely. My email address in the best that works is the one I'm at dental school, and is mbrind@lsuhsc.edu.
Okay. And we're going to post that in the body of the post, so you guys can just click on it and send Marco an email. But Marco, thank you so much for being on. I am so grateful to finally get you on. It took forever, but we got you.
Hey, you just confirmed what my dad told me at the beginning. Use dentistry for another reason, to make more friends.
Absolutely.
And you just confirmed that, my friend. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, well, it's my pleasure, my friend. So stick around while we say goodbye to everybody else. But thank you guys for watching the Best Practices Show. And if you enjoyed today, which I know you did, just do us a favor. Just hit the share button, share with your friends, protect this great profession we call dentistry. And until we see you next time, keep watching the Best Practices Show. You guys have a great rest of your day.